The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. In 2013, in my role as head of federal policing in British Columbia, I started to see an increase in drug-related deaths attributed to a powder form of fentanyl being delivered by mail, says Kevin deBruyckere. On May 23, 2014, it hit home for my family. My 22-year-old son lost his life, and our family became a victim of the fentanyl epidemic. Over the next decade, more than 16,000 people have lost their lives due to overdoses in British Columbia. Vancouver is at the epicenter of this epidemic. Unless there is a significant reframing of response to the drug crisis, we can't beat it. It's not a law enforcement challenge or issue only. It's much larger than that, says deBruyckere. This is a public health issue, it's a housing issue, it's an educational issue, it's a prevention issue, says deBruyckere. The costs to take on the drug epidemic are significant, but the cost of not having a coordinated long-term strategy are much larger. People are dying, families are being destroyed, and all of society is paying a price, says deBruyckere. I invited Kevin deBruyckere to join me for a conversation that matters about fentanyl and the devastating impact it's having. Kevin, welcome. I'd like to say welcome and be enthusiastic about the conversation that we're having, but I'm horrified by where we're at.
It is disappointing. It is scary. It is sad. And it is a generational problem, an issue that has to be solved.
Generational, like that in itself means that the scope of it is going to be incredibly challenging to get under control, maybe even to define.
Well, I think that is the issue. Vancouver, not only the epicenter, in my view, was the beachhead for the fentanyl crisis in North America in 2012, 2013, when we started to see the delivery of that powdered form and then the conversion of that powder into pills that were then sold on the street. So that, I think, was not only the epicenter, but the beachhead for it in North America.
Well, let's go back to what was your role in law enforcement in British Columbia at that time, and what were the first telltale signs for you that made you say, okay, something's happening here?
So in 2013, I was appointed as the officer in charge of federal policing for the province of British Columbia.
Does that mean that you were with the RCMP?
The RCMP,
okay.
federal. So working closely with Vancouver Police Department, the U.S. Law enforcement agencies represented in Vancouver at the U.S. Consulate. Most notably in Vancouver, working with Vancouver, seeing the growth or the increase in number of overdose deaths related to fentanyl, seeing overdose deaths throughout the province attributed to the delivery via mail, and not seeing that same increase elsewhere in Canada or frankly in North America. Myself and the representative from the Vancouver Police actually identified fentanyl as a emerging national threat in 2014, late 2014, after the loss of my son, but seeing the explosion of deaths at that time. And since then, we've seen, like you pointed out, 16,000. Check the numbers today. Half the population of the city of Kamloops has lost across Canada.
Wow.
Like if you look at that, I was, in preparing for today, trying to put it into some sort of context. 100,000 people in Kamloops, 50,000 people in Canada in 8 years of lost their life.
The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. One of the things that I found astounding is it was being delivered in the mail. How was it that it was able to find its way through the border and into Canada via the mail?
It was in such small quantities, ordered through the dark web from China. It would be delivered, at great risk to those responsible for the delivery of the mail. And then from there, we saw it grew to larger importation of powder form. I recall some press releases we did actually demonstrating the sound of a pill press to alert the public. If you hear this, call the police, because it's, likely attributed to the pressing of these pills.
Wow.
For distribution.
So at that time, they were shipping fentanyl in its finished form in the mail.
Correct.
These days, I keep hearing about precursors that they come in because they navigate their way through some tricky legislation and allow them to be imported because they can be used for other purposes.
That's my understanding, and now the where that's kind of wound its way into the current environment is, the importation of the precursor chemicals, then used to produce fentanyl in these super labs in British Columbia and Alberta, and then finding their way to the U.S. market is, certainly what's been reported and been leveraged by the U.S. administration, politically to justify these tariffs.
So what made us the beachhead? Was it location or was it opportunity?
I think both. I think location, Vancouver is uniquely situated in the Asia Pacific. It's a Commonwealth country, very large port, very large.
A leaky port too.
Yes, very much so. The prevalence of really a Chinese national population. Not to say Chinese nationals are criminals, but certainly was a link there, and we can't lose sight as well. At the same time, we're seeing an increase in money laundering activity back in that 2012, 2013. The cash coming into the casinos, leading to the Peter German report, and ultimately the Cullen Commission, and the growth of these underground banking networks that were facilitating not only the laundering of the cash derived from drug sales, but putting that cash together with wealthy Chinese locals who otherwise could not get cash out of China. So essentially, and then that would then get repaid in China and fentanyl coming back. So we saw that happening at the same time. We saw the fentanyl really starting to get introduced into Canada and North America. In fact, I visited the southern border of the US in early 2015 and having discussions with Homeland Security investigations at that time. And I asked, have you started to see fentanyl across the southern border? They had not yet seen fentanyl coming across
from the south
in 2015. So how quickly, it was a decade, how quickly that has shifted, how the cartels and organized crime groups take advantage of a new market opportunity, and we are where we are today.
The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. A couple of the other components about what make us at the epicenter of the fentanyl crisis in North America are the ability of so many different transnational actors to be able to come and find a way into British Columbia and operate as though different agencies within law enforcement are not able to coordinate their efforts to thwart the activities of these cartels, but not just cartels, other transnational threat.
Correct. Yeah. So we certainly saw that in Vancouver with the cartel presence. 10, 15 years ago, they started to move into Vancouver to facilitate their business.
Which we don't think that they're here.
Correct.
Like they're operating under the radar here.
They are operating under the radar to make sure they are here, just like any other corporate entity, to ensure that their product gets delivered to their customer. Mm-hmm. That's how we looked at it from a law enforcement perspective when I was in my position. These are corporate entities with supply chains, and our job at that point is to do what we could to disrupt that supply chain, whether it was through, impacting communication, logistics, transportation, leveraging any opportunity we could to disrupt. That involved working extremely close with U.S. law enforcement. It's not lost, should not be lost on anyone that every federal U.S. law enforcement agency is represented at the U.S. consulate in Vancouver.
Because they know the extent of the problem here.
And they want to work with us and work together. This is not a Canada problem. This is not a Vancouver problem. This is really, I would say beyond a continental issue at this point. This is a global crisis as we see, the dispersion of the issue globally. So it requires that type of response.
Did you see the series that Kim Bolan produced about a year and a half ago? Mm-hmm. Once again, proving that Vancouver is at the epicenter, but it wasn't even about the transportation or the movement of fentanyl into the United States. It was that we became an epicenter to deliver fentanyl to Fiji, New Zealand, Australia, into the South Asia Pacific region, with precursors that came from China being manufactured here, and they're being distributed there.
We were seeing the same thing. We have seen the same thing with other drugs. So it's taken advantage of those existing supply chain to distribute a new product, evolving product. So we saw it with cocaine, where cocaine would come north through the U.S. to Vancouver, and then from there distributed to Australia and other South Asian countries.
So we got a big challenge. One of the things that President Donald Trump announced literally on the day that he had won the election, or days after, until you can clear up your fentanyl problems, we're going to charge tariffs. And that was even in the wording of his press release that I think that went out yesterday or today. Mm-hmm. There has to be this focus on us being able to bring a stop to it. But as I mentioned in the intro, you said bringing a stop to it is going to take much more than law enforcement. What are the way in which we can build a coordinated response to reduce the demand side that would then also impact the supply side?
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head. There has been no discussion or very little discussion on the demand side. Throughout my law enforcement career, there was always initiatives working with youth. The police were involved with, whether it's the DARE program or other similar programs, mm-hmm. to start early to support our youth in making healthy decisions. It wasn't so much about, just say no and, those campaigns that I think have proven not to be effective, but it's those supports that need to be in place for the education system, for the families to provide that support, because kids now are exposed to so much, through social media, that it is a challenge.
So education has to play a role. mental health has to play a role. Is there a benefit? And I ask this knowing that when you first started to raise awareness about the presence of fentanyl, you thought initially, if I raise awareness, it will scare people away. But it wound up having the opposite effect. It attracted people. How do we get out that message that, like, this isn't just something that you're going to go, wow, what a high. This is like deadly, and yet still that message doesn't get through.
Well, I think it goes back to the complexity of the underlying challenges and issues that we have. You mentioned mental health, housing crisis, the education system, the immigration system, the economy. All of those factors taken together make it challenging. The healthcare system, the restrictions on, pain medication that, provide an opportunity for these criminals to introduce an alternative. I heard Kevin Brousseau, the fentanyl czar, who I've known over the years, make a statement, well, we need a whole of Canada approach. And I would say like a whole of government approach really is what is necessary. Every ministry of government that somehow touches this crisis needs to prioritize or place a focus on the issue and how best they can play a part in addressing it.
The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. So what I find interesting is we have we're in an overdose crisis in British Columbia. Let's address it by giving safe supply. Therefore, we're going to help people to be able to make better choices and get them off of this drug. I'm not convinced that this is good policy.
I'm torn on many initiatives because, like safe supply, and now the alternative is lock them up and enforce care. So how we have the two extremes. I look at that. Well, somebody's trying to come up with a solution, based on research or maybe best practices in other countries. And with the goal to keep them alive or keep people alive as long as they can to perhaps accept treatment. Naloxone is another one. Like, there's schools and universities now are bringing naloxone into dorms and things like that, just to, frankly, I think it should be available more widely available. Like COVID testing kits were freely available a couple of years ago. We should be making naloxone. You can just go pick it up. But even now we're finding naloxone isn't effective because the fentanyl is being mixed with other drugs that minimize the impact or the effect of naloxone.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the autonomic response to breathe gets disrupted by fentanyl.
Right.
And the user just winds up basically going and stops breathing.
Correct.
And they can't force themselves to breathe, and the naloxone has to force them to breathe. Well, if there's other chemicals that are being added into the fentanyl that won't allow the naloxone to start that breathing process, there's no hope.
No, that's right. And they're always, there's a physical impact of extended use. Like it actually causes, brain damage, or, some who have recovered, who have stopped breathing and the subsequent brain damage that suffer. And after having gone through what we went through, although 10 years ago, it on one hand, it seems like a lifetime ago, but it seems like yesterday. And early on, very few people were impacted. Now, everybody I talk to either has lost somebody directly or has somebody close to them in the throes of addiction and are just dreading that phone call in the middle of the night.
So let's go there. You're in law enforcement, and your own son becomes a victim to this. It's devastating. How do you deal with it?
Well, it was extreme. Well, it was hard.
Yeah.
For our family directly, our other son was 2 years younger than Justin. He witnessed, his parents trying to revive his older brother, so there's that impact on him, as well as the extended family. It just goes on and on and on. And even now, I'll run into, parents from high school who will still kind of remember what we went through, but now have their own stories to share about the challenges, whether it's a loved one they've lost or currently going through addiction or whatever problems they have. So you reach a point though where especially now seeing our other son, Jared, kind of grow and develop into a man and get married and have his own child, that, would any of that happen if not for the tragedy that we suffered? So you kind of come to a place, of acceptance, and I don't know if gratitude's the right word, but grateful that, we have what we have today.
There is, though, I think still, and maybe we're going to have to try and encourage people to get beyond this. I think a shame in losing a child to fentanyl. It's as though somehow the parent did something wrong as well. And what do we need to do to be able to help those families to not have to be victimized again, even if it's their own internal psychological struggle?
Well, and I think that's becomes natural with anybody who loses a child, regardless of the cause. You're always revisiting those inflection points or those points in time during the lifetime of your child. Well, if we did this, or if we did this, if he hadn't have broken his arm when he was in grade 5, and did the unconscious, non-conscious sedation somehow trigger, something that caused the addiction? Was there something that we didn't know happened that caused him to go down that path? So believe me, as a family, we went through that for a long time, and continue to go through that. Did we personally go through a period of stigma? Absolutely. My wife was a nurse, I was in law enforcement, and then losing a son to this, it was hard. And I think what got us through, we're a very close-knit extended family, and got us through that. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that connection. Well,
and it's a reminder that this is a crisis that affects, yes, the user, the person who it takes their life, but that person is connected to a network of family and friends and associates and society as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We also have to have that compassion for those that we see or come across, a couple blocks from here. We can't, they're not invisible people. Their families are there. They're worried about them. So I think that's one of the challenges we have.
Collectively, we all have a responsibility.
We do.
Thanks for coming in and discussing an issue that, as you point out, is generational in nature and vitally important that we address.
It is. Thanks for having me.